Had a belt drive in for a while. I'm gonna finally put it on. Got some KMOD parts. Try and tame this thing down from its little bit of washout problems. So do some unboxing and see what we got. First box of KMOD parts. Find a sharper knife maybe. Use good tape at least. Needed a new hat. Nice little beanie. Stickers. Looks like you even get a manual with it. Owner's manual. Pump. Here's the shock number 1. See what we got here. It's got an Evol front track shock, so that's pretty nice. And that's gonna be the. Haven't seen one with this coating. It's a nice shock. We got the turnkey skinny suspension list and everything, instructions. Got some instructions for the shock. Shock number 2. And this one is a little, so this one we've got the QS adjustment on it. I was hoping for that on this one, but he said it just won't fit. So make that one work. It's still an Evol, so that's pretty badass. Keep things a little lighter, I suppose. Asked about using the coilovers. He says they won't fit as far as clearance. They have to do a whole bunch of different things. So we're gonna make these work. Still super pumped about it. Some heavy duty rear wheels. Nice. Might upgrade those to some TKIs later on. That's your upper wheels. Let's see what's next. We've got rear shock mount, limiter strap attachments, the coupling block, rear arm, lower piece, track adjuster, got your rear arms and front arm right there. Shock mount. Another, that looks like a limiter, and I have no idea. That must be the, I don't know, we'll have to see what that is. And a few other shock mounts. So get my dull knife again. Kind of all over the place with the phone there, but got the rails, comes with the new scratchers, and those are nice because they've actually got replaceable blocks on them. Looks like it's angled, got a good angle on there as well, so where you can kick the snow up into your track a little better. That's pretty cool. So set those over here. And this is nice because these are already prepped. They've got the slides on. I don't know if all of them come this way, but it's pretty cool. Hooked this up nicely, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Has a wheel on it. Yeah, these are beefy. This is pretty cool. All right, well, I'm gonna get this stuff out of its box. Come back. Oh, little anti-stab. Nice. Okay, so got the rails with the high backs on, front wheels on, bump stops on, and then I left these ones packaged because they tell you what everything is. Got the rail spacers for the Skinny, rear shock mount, limiter strap, adjuster block, front shock mount assembly, upper wheels, rear wheels, your adjuster block. This must be front arm, lower. And you got your rear upper arm to go between the tunnel, your lower rear arm mount, anti-stab, another shock mount. Or no, that's your rear axle. That's rear axle. These badass little scratchers with to where you can angle these to throw more snow, so that's pretty awesome. Front arm, rear arm, your rear shock QS3 with the evol, and then your front evol, air pump, directions, and some garb. So pretty awesome. I'm going to start assembling this and come back. Okay, so you've got 3 spacers that attach the rails and the anti-stab, and you take it apart, put this through with the spacer, and then these will go in the right location. Okay, so you got your front hole, your second one, and this is angled, so it'll stay there to where it can't go that too far back like that. And then the next one's going to be right here, the spacer, and then the spacer here, and then one there. So you got those 5 spacers in at the moment, so I'll get those through and nuts loosely on. Okay, so now I've got these on. They're just loose, but still move them. Nuts, these are nice locking nuts instead of having to deal with a bunch of Loctite. Real nice heavy duty lockers. So we've got those 3 spacers in, limiter strap, anti-stab, nothing tight yet, still got to get everything else in. Okay, before these last 2 nuts go on back here, maybe even leave some off, you got to get this in because it actually slips inside the rails and it is extremely tight. It's precision, so make sure that gets in there first before you tighten anything down. Okay, so I've got this loosely on there. It might have to come back off, but this way you can see kind of where it goes. The rear arm will attach there. The adjuster block will be here. Your shock mount will be here. Rear axle. So I'll come back. Okay, so front shock mount slips in. Just put the bolt through there. Rear shock mount. So this one, the shock mount on the right side. On the back, the shock will go on the left side. So this is a spacer that goes all the way through, and then you'll blue Loctite this one, and maybe a few others, but start there. Little correction on this. I got to flip this around. There's a large face right here. This is a larger face, so that's what will sit on the adjustment blocks. So I got to flip that around. So make sure you get that on the right direction. Okay, so I got this flipped around, and then you'll put blue Loctite on these because they thread in each side, and then you've got your coupling block that comes apart parts, and then some O-rings in the middle. And this little piece here, it's got a little screw in it. Get that out of there. And then it will go in here so that way it doesn't twist. So it sits nice and flush there and bolts in. And then this will slide through, and then the O-rings will go in. Okay, so before you put the screw in here, go ahead and feed this through. I put the screw in and it was fighting me a little bit. But there's also these locking Allen heads back here to lock that in place. And then the O-rings right here, these will go in these, and then you lube them up with WD-40, and then you'll slip these over them, and that's kind of how it maintains grip when you turn them, so they're not just free flowing, so your lockout stays where you want it. So lots of little detail here on how this works. I'll have to make sure this all lines up here. There might be, I might have to do a little bit of mod there. It feels pretty tight. I'll try and stick it in. Let's see. Okay, so this hole wasn't quite lining up perfect, so I went up to a 5/32 bit, which is just barely oversized. Shouldn't hurt anything because of the way it's on there. I'll let Kevin know so that he can make sure it's correct, and then I'll see if it'll go in there this time. It was wanting to cross thread the last time, so I stopped and just gave it a little. Yeah, now it's looking a lot straighter going in there. Okay, I got it in there. Just I barely went oversized. It was still really tight. You really got to watch it going in there to where everything lines up. But just in case, make sure you leave that one loose, and then make sure the shaft go through, or put the shaft through and then put the bolt in. But just be careful and put a little blue Loctite on that. I don't think it's going to go anywhere regardless because it's in soft metal, but just so you know, there's that. So now I'll finish this. Okay, so putting these O-rings on, I just rolled the first one on, and then the second one right over the top of it, and then another one over the top of that, and you just keep going over them until they're all on. And then you'll spray them with some WD-40, or maybe even lithium grease or something. But once you do that, then these will just carefully slip over that. There is these are tapered, so it should work pretty good. Okay, these go on pretty hard. Like each little O-ring, it's like it pops, and you just kind of twist it as you go. Just put the WD-40 on there, it worked good. Again, blue Loctite on these, and then I'm not going to tighten anything up quite yet, but I think you could tighten those up at that point. Once those are tight, then you got to come in here with a 3mm Allen head, which I believe is what this is as well. I need to tighten that up still, and then you'll lock that center shaft into place so these can't rotate, because right now they're they spin free, but once that's locked, then they've got to turn on those O-rings, so it gives you some good stability to it. Okay, now we're going to install the front arm. So you've got this shaft, this spacer right here. So we'll take the spacer off and set it. I'm just going to drop it down there for now so it's in there. And then I know when you put the arm on, you got to kind of pull it together and maybe pull the arm apart. We'll see. Yeah, see, it's not quite going on there, so you got to kind of pull it apart and get it slipped down over that. Okay, pretty easy. Just kind of squeeze these together and it went through. And then I started the shaft and have it just sitting right here so that I can grab the little spacer now and get it lined up and get this pushed through the rest of the way. Okay, so now I've got the arm through there, and then blue Loctite on these again. By the way, the shaft has a little bevel on one end of this, one side more than the other, so that kind of helps as you drive it through there. You definitely want to get it through each one of these by hand, but then once I got just past that one, it got pretty tight, so I just rubber mallet and kind of tapped it on through. Okay, next you'll mount the shock. Put the spacer in there, and then there's a washer on each side. You can see it. There's a, see the gold washer on each side, and then the spacer on the outside and the nut. Like I said, I left everything loose. Haven't put this on yet. Bolt through the top, so it's just on there. And the E-Vol goes down into the outside. Make sure it's not on the inside of the rail right there. So you kind of get the overall. Next, you'll install the rear arm. So you'll pull the shaft out of this, put it in, blue Loctite on these as well. And then this, I'm assuming goes up. I'm not 100% sure, but it about has to because the shock mounts on this side. So just make sure you're in line. Okay, so shock is on, E-Vol down and out, chamber on the inside. It's not like that, you'll break it. Cut the bolt in with some Loctite on it. Shims on each side, gold shim in there. Okay, so now you put the adjuster block in. I put the bolt in first. It's easier to get in there instead of trying to get down in there. So just get that in and started. This has a recess in it, so you make sure when you go to tighten that up, it's lined up correctly. And then you put the spacer in between, put the axle through, make sure those are sitting where they should. Now on the wheels, you know, there's this debate. So you've got your snap ring to the outside and plastic on this side. To me, if you bolt it in this way, it gives the plastic a chance to, you know, like if force got on it, or if this came out or something ate it up. I've seen these bearings come out. They only come out this way, not through this side. And so to me, it seems like put them on this way and it's going to stay in, because your spacer right here is going to hold that bearing in. If you go the other way and you're holding it in this way and something chews on it and rips that wheel off, I think it's just a little safer to be on the outside like that. So I'll put those on, little blue Loctite on these as well. Even though I'm not a big fan of Loctite in these, but probably do it just to make sure, because if this rear wheel comes off and this gets in your track, you are screwed. Like, that's one of the most catastrophic things I've seen happen on an Alpha, is the rear wheels or the axle not, even the track not being tight enough, and you get some slack in there. So I wouldn't mess around with it. I would just blue Loctite and deal with it if you have to. You can always heat it up if needed. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on. Okay, so I got the rear wheels on. Like I said, clips out, Loctite, spacer. Then on the front, you go up here to the limiter. Now this will, spacer goes on the limiter, washer on the bottom side, if I keep track of it. So that'll go on there, and then you got to let the air out of the shock. Now I'm going to run this all the way out, or maybe I got to put it on there and kind of see how my clearance is and see where I'm going to run it. It did come in one hole up, so I would start there unless you know what you're doing. I do some weird testing, so not necessarily recommended, but I'm going to try it. And then up here, you need to make sure that you put the bolt that comes with it back in this to hold it together, so that this needs to stay centered in the rail. If it's loose like this and wanders side to side, it'll get in the track clips and could cut it. So keep that in position. All right, when you're putting this in, if you can tell that, you know, the bolt runs in vertically down this way, not at an angle this way. So make sure you don't cross thread that, and it's a real pain in the butt. So in order to do that, I just went ahead and put a strap on it right here and pulled it down so I could get that strap to lay flat without risking, because that can be a little bit of a pain. And then put the washer on straight on the front edge, and then put your bolt back in, and there's, like, everything right now is still loose on this skid. So next you'll pull these collars off the shaft, put the shaft through the rear arm, put the wheels on, put this on, and then you'll see you want it basically flush with the aluminum on the aluminum, and then relock the collar. Okay, now I've got these locked on and everything in. These will go in the chassis, so you can Loctite those if you want. I don't think I will on those ones. So now we're almost complete. Get the rear axle, the adjuster block, the coupling adjuster in, all this in. Now I think at this point you're probably greasing, but I'm going to go through and tighten everything before I grease. One of the things I've kind of had to watch doing skids before, this one may not matter, but on a normal twin rail, when you're tightening all the bolts, you know, you're torquing this way on this side and this way on this side, and I've actually had the rails, you know, the rails kind of twist and do this, so when it's sitting, you'll wind up with one of the back ones, because of the torque on it, kind of lifted up doing this a little bit, and I've had to like clamp down, you know, get a clamp and clamp the one down and put a spacer under this one. It's just because every single bolt has torque on it, and when it does that, it'll kind of twist the skid as it goes. So I usually start with something under there, clamp down, kind of an offset twist on it. This one I don't think is going to have that problem because it's so close. There's so many things holding it rigidly, you know, perpendicular to it. So I don't think it's going to be a issue on this, but I'll watch it, and I'll start by tightening the rear and the front, and then work through the middle as I kind of from the outside in. It's kind of backwards, but when you start from the inside out, you wind up with more of a twist. So okay, so everything's tight except for like the rear axle. Doesn't look like there's any twist to it, so it all looks good, nice and badass. So now I'll go through grease these here. This one says be really careful with. If you get side to side on that, it can rip out, so just be careful greasing that one. And then up here, when you go do these, you know, pull them out, grease them. I personally kind of like anti-seize on them myself. That's usually what I put on them, but it says grease, so your call on that. Got everything good and tight. The thing is solid, ready to go. Once I get it on this sled, I'll install these scratchers. By the looks of it, they'll go in right here. That's for the wrong side, so you go in like that, and then you have your scratcher, and then if needed you can angle that. I think it'll work better if you angle it in a little bit to kick more snow inward, since it has the ability. Okay, just give you one last look, and then I'll stop the video until I install it. I would make sure that you tighten this up before you get your wheels in the way. You can still do it, but it might be easier.